I stared at the half-eaten sandwich on my plate, my appetite gone. Across from me, Ava looked radiant, eyes wide with excitement, fingers drumming against the table as if she had just discovered the most exhilarating idea in the world. "So," she said, a playful glint in her eyes, "how do you think we should do it?" I blinked, my stomach twisting. "Do what?" "You know, set up the open relationship." She said it so casually, as if we were just discussing what movie to watch or which restaurant to try next. Should we make dating profiles? Talk about the people we're seeing beforehand? Or just let things happen naturally? Her voice was light, her words smooth. But for me, they crashed down like bricks. Ava and I had been together for 3 years. 3 solid years of love, of building something real. And now, she wanted this? I placed my fork down carefully, my fingers suddenly feeling numb. "Ava, how long have you been thinking about this?" She hesitated. A flicker of something, guilt, maybe, crossed her face before she shook her head. "A few weeks. I've been reading about it online, and it just makes sense. So many couples are happier after trying it." Happy? I was looking at engagement rings last month. I was picturing a future with her. And here she was, suggesting that we weren't enough. I should have told her no. I should have said that the thought of her being with someone else made my chest feel like it was caving in. But then she reached across the table, her fingers wrapping around mine. "I love you, Liam. This isn't because anything is wrong. I just don't want us to wake up one day and realize we missed out on something." I wanted to tell her she wasn't missing out on anything, that we were enough, that I was enough. Instead, I forced a nod. "Yeah, sure. If you think it'll be good for us, we can try it." Her entire face lit up. Not a single moment of hesitation. No checking if I was okay with it. No second thoughts. Just pure excitement. That night, lying beside her, I stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She had turned away from me, curled up like everything was perfectly fine. Like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. And deep down, I knew. I had just made the worst mistake of my life. The very next day, Ava wasted no time setting things in motion. She sat on the couch, legs tucked under her, scrolling through her phone with the kind of enthusiasm people usually reserve for planning vacations. "Do you think this picture works?" she asked, flipping her phone toward me. It was a selfie, one I'd taken of her during a weekend trip to the beach. Her hair was caught in the wind, her smile effortless. I swallowed hard. That picture was ours, a moment we had shared. And now, she wanted to use it to attract other men. "I don't know," I muttered. Ava rolled her eyes. "Come on, Liam. I need your help with this." I forced myself to look at her phone again. "They both look fine." She sighed. "Fine isn't helpful." Then she asked me to take new photos. New pictures of my girlfriend, so she could look good for other guys. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to scream that this was insane. But I didn't. I played along. Like a fool. Later that night, Ava set up her dating profiles while I sat beside her, pretending not to care. Every few minutes, she'd ask me what kind of bio she should write or if a certain picture made her look too serious. Meanwhile, I opened a profile for myself, just to show that I was making an effort. But every time I tried to fill it out, the words felt empty. What was I supposed to write? In a relationship, but looking for fun? The entire thing made my stomach turn. Maybe she knew I wouldn't actually go through with it. Maybe that's why she felt so comfortable diving in headfirst. Because she knew I wasn't like her. By the end of the week, Ava had 3 dates lined up. 3. "Look at this one," she said one evening, shoving her phone in my face. "He's a personal trainer at that fancy gym downtown. We're getting coffee tomorrow." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice to stay steady. The first time she got ready for a date, I felt like I was suffocating. She wore a black dress I'd never seen before, a new dress she bought just for this. She spent over an hour doing her makeup, adjusting her jewelry, making sure she looked perfect. I realized then that she had never put that much effort into our date nights. She stepped out of the bedroom, twirling slightly. "How do I look?" I forced a smile. "Great." And then she was gone. She came home late that night, humming softly as she slipped into bed beside me. I could hear her texting someone, her phone lighting up the dark room. The next morning, she was radiant, glowing in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. And all I could think was, I'm losing her. Every week, the gap between us grew wider. She was always out, always talking to someone, always checking her phone. And me? I became a ghost in my own home. I thought about confronting her. I thought about demanding answers. But a part of me was terrified. What if I pushed too hard? What if she chose them over me? So I stayed silent. And that silence would become my biggest regret. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since Ava started exploring this new version of our relationship. 3 weeks of her dressing up for other men. 3 weeks of her coming home late, smiling to herself, texting someone under the covers while I lay awake next to her. She wasn't mine anymore. Not really. I watched as she started spending less and less time with me. No more lazy Sunday mornings. No more inside jokes. No more cuddling up on the couch, watching our favorite shows. Even our Sunday pancake tradition, something that had been ours since the beginning, was forgotten. Instead, she was meeting the girls for brunch, except I knew the truth. There were no girls. I started paying attention to her schedule. Monday, coffee with the gym guy. Wednesday, dinner with some lawyer dude. Friday, drinks with a guy who owned a food truck. Every single time, she came home looking like she had just had the best night of her life. One night, I did something I never thought I would do. I drove to the restaurant where she said she was having dinner. I wasn't planning on confronting her. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. Through the window, I saw her sitting at the bar, her hand on some guy's arm, laughing at whatever he was saying. And the way she looked at him, it was the way she used to look at me. I should have walked away. I should have left then and there. But I didn't. Instead, I drove home and sat in the dark, waiting for her to return. When she did, she smelled like someone else's cologne. She slipped into bed beside me like it was nothing, like we were still the same. But we weren't. Not anymore. The next day, I tried to bring it up. Don't you think you're going on a lot of dates? I asked carefully, keeping my voice neutral. She frowned. That's the whole point of an open relationship, Liam. To meet new people. To have experiences. She looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. You should try it too, she added, reaching for my hand. I can help you with your profile if you want. But I didn't want help with my profile. I didn't want to meet new people. I wanted my girlfriend back. I wanted the person who used to get excited about ordering pizza and watching bad movies with me. Not this new version of Ava. This woman who was always dressed up and heading out the door, leaving me behind without a second thought. That night, something inside me broke. I couldn't take it anymore. So I reached out to the one person who had always been there. Emily. Emily had been Ava's best friend since college. She had been part of our lives from the start, always around for movie nights, always there when we needed help. She was different from Ava. Where Ava was impulsive, Emily was thoughtful. Where Ava chased the next big thrill, Emily found joy in the little things. I never thought about her as anything more than a friend. But that night, when she came over to borrow something from the kitchen, she took one look at me and knew. Liam, she said softly, setting down the bowl she had come to get. You look awful. I let out a hollow laugh. Yeah, I feel awful too. What's going on? And just like that, it all came pouring out. I told her everything. How Ava had changed. How she barely looked at me anymore. How I felt like I was losing my mind, watching it happen. Emily listened. Really listened. And when I finished, she shook her head. That's not an open relationship, she said. That's just Ava doing whatever she wants without caring how it affects you. Hearing someone else say it out loud made me feel less insane. That night, Emily stayed a little longer than usual. We talked for hours. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel invisible. And when she left, I realized something. Ava wasn't the only one who could explore new possibilities. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I cared what she thought anymore. A week passed. A week of silence, of waiting, of watching. Ava was still out almost every night. Still coming home late. Still acting like everything was perfectly fine. But something had changed. Me. I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I wasn't sitting around, hoping she'd remember what we had. Because for the first time, I had someone else on my mind. Emily started coming around more often, usually when Ava was out. At first, it was innocent. We'd watch movies, eat takeout, talk about anything and everything except her. But the tension, the shift, it was there. And then, one night, it happened. Emily sat on the couch, fidgeting with her necklace, something she always did when she was nervous. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. "And it might make things weird, but I can't keep pretending." My heart pounded. A part of me already knew what was coming. She exhaled, looking down at her hands. "I've had feelings for you for a long time, Liam. Since before you and Ava even got together." I stared at her, my pulse hammering in my ears. She shook her head. "I never said anything because she was my best friend. And then you two got serious, and I thought I could move on. But watching what she's been doing to you." She met my eyes. "I can't stand it anymore." Ava was out that night, on another date, with another man. And for the first time since this entire disaster started, I realized I didn't care. Emily was looking at me like I mattered, like she actually saw me. And then she kissed me. I should have stopped it. I should have thought about Ava, about our history, about how this would change everything. But I didn't. Because when Emily kissed me, it didn't feel like something wrong. It felt like something right. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel empty anymore. The next morning, everything was different. Emily left before Ava got home. But I wasn't the same. I wasn't broken. I wasn't waiting. I had moved on. But I wanted Ava to feel it, to see it, to understand exactly what she had done. So I started dropping hints. That morning, when Ava came home, all chatty and casual, making coffee like nothing had changed, I took my shot. "Oh, Emily stopped by last night," I said, stirring my coffee like it was no big deal. "We had a really good talk." Ava's hand froze on the coffee pot. "Emily?" she repeated. "Yeah." I took a sip of my coffee, hiding my smirk. "She's really easy to talk to, you know?" She wasn't expecting that. For the first time in weeks, I saw doubt flash across her face. And it was glorious. Over the next few days, I made sure to mention Emily just enough. "Emily's hilarious. She really understands me. She gives great advice." Each time, Ava's expression tightened. Then, she started checking my phone. She thought she was being sneaky about it, waiting until I was in the shower or the kitchen, but I saw her, scrolling through my messages, searching for something. The best part? I had deleted everything. I left just enough to make her wonder, and it was driving her insane. Then, the real fun began. She started canceling her own dates. Suddenly, she was home more often. Suddenly, she wanted to watch movies with me again. Suddenly, she was trying. But it was too late. I was already gone. Then, one night, she snapped. "Are you seeing someone else?" I raised an eyebrow. Isn't that kind of the point of an open relationship? She folded her arms, glaring. "Who is it? Is it Emily?" I smiled. "I thought we weren't supposed to share details about our other partners. Isn't that what you said when I asked about your dates?" Ava lost it. She started pacing, breathing hard, running her hands through her hair. Then she turned to me. "I think we should close the relationship again." I almost laughed. The same woman who had been jumping from guy to guy, night after night, barely sparing me a second glance. Now she wanted to take it all back? Now that she thought I was moving on? Now that she realized I wasn't waiting for her anymore? I stared at her. Really stared. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt power. I let the silence stretch. Let her squirm. Then, finally, I spoke. "You're right, Ava. We should close the relationship." She exhaled, relieved. But I wasn't done. "Because we're over." Ava blinked. Once. Twice. Her lips parted slightly, like she misheard me, like she needed me to say it again. "What?" I leaned back, crossing my arms. Calm. Steady. In control. "We're done, Ava." She let out a nervous laugh. "Wait. Hold on. You're joking, right?" I wasn't. But I let her sit in that uncertainty for a moment. Let her feel what I had felt for the past few weeks. Confusion, panic, helplessness. Then, I said it again. "No, Ava. I'm not joking." Her face twisted in disbelief. But I just said we should close the relationship again. We can go back to how things were." I scoffed. "Go back? Back to what?" Me sitting at home while she went out with whoever caught her eye? Me waiting for her while she explored? Me watching her slowly forget about us while she chased the next thrill? I stood up, my voice steady. You don't get to pick me back up when it's convenient for you. Her breath hitched. I thought you'd always be here, she whispered. And there it was. The ugly truth she never meant to say out loud. She didn't think I'd ever leave. She thought I was a safety net, a backup plan, something she could put on a shelf while she went out and had her fun, and then grab again when she was ready to settle down. I laughed. A low, bitter sound. Well, you thought wrong. Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No guilt. No regret. Just relief. For the first time since this entire nightmare began, I was free. Ava stormed out that night. She didn't take much, just a small bag, her phone, and her pride. She left angry. Not sad. Not heartbroken. Just furious that I had beaten her at her own game. And I let her go. Because I wasn't the one who had lost anything. She was. The next morning, she came back. She brought friends with her, Jessica and a couple of others. They walked in like some kind of support group, whispering under their breath, glaring at me like I was the villain in all this. Ava packed in silence, but the tension was thick. Then, halfway through, she snapped. You really don't care at all, do you? She accused, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. You're just fine with throwing away everything we had? I met her gaze, steady. What exactly did we have, Ava? She clenched her jaw. I loved you. I shook my head. No, you loved having me around. There's a difference. Her face crumbled for a second, just a second, before she hardened again. Jessica, standing behind her, muttered under her breath, he's such an asshole. Emily walked in right then, coffee in hand, completely unfazed. She smiled sweetly. Need help packing, Ava? Ava froze. Jessica's eyes widened. The other friends whispered. Emily just stood there, cool and collected. That was the moment Ava knew. She looked between us, realization dawning. It wasn't just that I was done with her. It wasn't just that I had moved on. It was who I had moved on with. Her voice shook. It was Emily, wasn't it? Emily took a slow sip of her coffee. I thought we weren't supposed to share details about our partners, Ava. Isn't that what you always said? The color drained from Ava's face. Checkmate. She grabbed her bag, turned on her heel, and walked out without another word. A few weeks passed. Ava didn't reach out, didn't try to fix things, but I knew she was watching. She started posting cryptic Instagram stories about betrayal and loyalty and people showing their true colors. I didn't respond. Neither did Emily. Because we didn't need to. We had already won. Now, I don't think about Ava much. Maybe she regrets what she did. Maybe she doesn't. It doesn't matter. Because I'm finally happy. Because I finally have someone who chooses me. Because for the first time in a long time, I know what it feels like to be loved the right way. And I'll never settle for less again. The end.